Daf Yomi, Tractate, Zevachim 8. Daf Ches Amud Aleph, top of the page. Chet Amud Aleph, top of the page. V'lakach HaKohen midam hachatat. Shetehei Kabbalah l'shem chatat. Right. And the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering. Leviticus 4:25, teaching that the collection of the blood must be performed for the sake of the sin offering, Ve'eshkachan shchita ve'kabbalah zari kamen alam tiamako v'chiper alav hakohen michataso shetei kapar l'shem chatos. The Gemara asks, and we found a source for the halakha that the slaughter and collection must be performed for the sake of a sin offering. From where do we derive this halakha with regard to the sprinkling of the blood? The Gemara answers, it is derived from a verse, as the verse states, and the priest shall make atonement for him concerning his sin. Leviticus 4:26. Teaching that the atonement must be effected for the sake of a sin offering, as atonement is effected by the sprinkling of the blood. Ashkachan shinui kodesh, shinui bali minalan, amanakra alav velo al chavero. The Gemara asks, we found a source for the prohibition against deviation from the type of offering. From where do we derive the prohibition against deviation with regard to the owner? The Gemara answers, the aforementioned verse states, and the priest shall make atonement for him, indicating that the intent must be for him and not for another. Ashkechan le'mitzvah la'akev bin alan, kedei amar Rav Huna bar Yehoshua, chataso, hachanami chataso. The Gemara asks, we found a source for the mitzvah to sprinkle the blood for the sake of the owner ab initio. From where do we derive that this is indispensable and disqualifies the offering if not fulfilled? The Gemara answers, it is as Rav Huna, son of Rav Yehoshua, says, with regard to the sin offering of a Nazarite, since the verse could have simply stated sin offering, but instead stated his sin offering. Numbers 6:16. It is inferred that the offering must be sacrificed for the owner's sake. Here too, since the verse could have simply stated sin, but states his sin, one infers that if the blood of the sin offering is not sprinkled for the sake of its owner, it is disqualified. Ashkachan mitzvah b'shinui kodesh uzrika b'shinui baalim bein lemitzvah bein la'akev b'chol avodot b'shinui kodesh ub'shar avodos b'shinui baalim bein lemitzvah bein la'akev b'nalan. The Gemara asks, we found a source for the mitzvah of sacrificing a sin offering without deviation from the type of offering ab initio, and with regard to sprinkling its blood without deviation with regard to the owner concerning both its mitzvah ab initio and its indispensability. From where do we derive that performing all sacrificial rites without deviation from the type of offering is an indispensable requirement, and that performing all other rites besides sprinkling the blood without deviation with regard to the owner was both the mitzvah ab initio and indispensable? Amar Rabbi Yonah says, Asi mechatas nazil, yichsiv hiklev hakohen, lifnei Hashem, v'yasa et chataso v'yasvalato, shehihu kol asyotav b'shem chatat. Rabbi Yonah says, it is derived from the halakha concerning the sin offering of a Nazarite. As it is written concerning the Nazarite, and the priest shall bring them before the Lord, and shall offer his sin offering and his burnt offering. Numbers 6:16. The verse teaches that all of its sacrificial actions must be performed for the sake of a sin offering. Ashkachan shinoi kodesh shinu bala minalan imeno inyan shinoi kodesh Tnehu inyan shinoi balim eshkachan lemitzvah leakev minalan. The Gemara asks, we found a source for the halacha that a sin offering must be sacrificed without deviation from the type of offering, and that this requirement is indispensable. From where do we derive that sacrificing it without deviation with regard to the odor is also indispensable, even in rites other than the sprinkling of the blood? Amar Rav Huna b'rei Rav Yehoshua chataso. Rav Huna, son of Yehoshua, says, since the verse concerning a Nazarite could have simply stated sin offering, but instead states his sin offering, one infers that the offering must be sacrificed for the owner's sake. Maskif la Ravina elaviata olat olato ma'edarashta be. Ravina objects to this. If that is so, what do you interpret from the fact that the same verse could have stated burnt offering, but instead states his burnt offering? Ravina minchaso nesech nisko ma'edarashta bahu. The Gemara asks, and according to Ravina, what do you interpret from the subsequent verse? The priest shall offer also his meal offering and his libation, Numbers 6:17. Why does Ravina not mention that this verse could have stated meal offering, but instead states his meal offering, and that it could have stated libation, but instead it states his libation? Ahubi ba'ale min chasam b'niskehem b'layla min chasam b'niskehem afilu lemachal ela olas olaso ma'edarashta behu. The Gemara answers that language is necessary. It is just like the phrase their meal offering and their libations, which is mentioned many times in the portion of the festival offerings. For example, Numbers 29:37. It teaches that the meal offerings and libations that are brought with the additional animal offerings of festivals can be sacrificed even at night after the offering is brought. The phrase their meal offering and their libations also teaches that they may be brought even on the following day. Likewise here, when stated with regard to a Nazarite, the phrase teaches that they may be brought at night or the day after the offering is sacrificed. But there remains a difficulty. What do you interpret from the fact that the verse could have stated burnt offering, but instead it states his burnt offering? V'tubi gamri mehadadi chatat chelev chatat nazir lo gamra sheken yeshima damim acherim chatat nazir v'chatat chelev lo gamra sheken kares. The Gemara raises an additional objection to the derivation from a Nazarite sin offering, and furthermore, can the halachot of a standard sin offering of a Nazarite's sin offering be derived from one another? The halachot of a sin offering brought for a transgression, for example, eating forbidden fat, cannot be derived from the halachot of a Nazarite's sin offering due to the unique element of stringency of the latter. Since there is other blood, for example, other offerings are brought with it. Likewise, the halachot of a Nazarite sin offering cannot be derived from the halachot of a sin offering brought for eating forbidden fat due to the unique element of stringency of the latter, since it atones for a transgression punishable by excision from the world to come. Karet. Rather, Rava says these halachot are derived from the halakha of the sin offering of a leper, as it is written. And the priest shall offer yasa, the sin offering. Leviticus 14:19, teaching that all sacrificial actions as sin offering must be performed for the sake of a sin offering. Eshkachan shinui kodesh shinu bar minale amar krav chiper al mataher v'gomer And we found a source for the halacha that a sin offering must be sacrificed without deviation from the type of offering, and that this is indispensable. From where we derive the sacrificing sin offering without deviation with regards to the owner is also indispensable. The verse states, and make atonement for the one that is to be purified of his impurity, Leviticus 14:19, indicating that the sin offering must be sacrificed for the sake of this person who is being purified and not for another person who is to be purified. The Gemara asks, but still, can the halachot of a standard sin offering and leper sin offering be derived from one another? This comparison is also problematic. The halachot of a sin offering brought for eating forbidden fat cannot be derived from the halachot of a leper's sin offering, since there is other blood that is brought with the latter. For example, meaning a burnt offering and a guilt offering and the halachot of a leper's sin offering cannot be derived from the halachot of a sin offering brought for eating forbidden fat, since the latter atones for a transgression punishable by karet. The Gemara answers, indeed, the halachot of a sin offering cannot be derived from the halachot of one other type of sin offering alone, but one can derive the halachot of one type of sin offering from the halachot of the other two. The verses concerning a standard sin offering, that of a leper, and that of a Nazirite, all contain elements that indicate that the offering must be sacrificed for its own sake. Two of them together are sufficient to teach that this halacha applies to the third case. The third case is therefore apparently extraneous, and it is understood to teach that proper intent in this regard is indispensable for all the offering rites. The Gemara asks, with regard to which type of sin offering should the Torah not have written this halacha, meaning which of the three cases should be regarded as the extraneous case? If you say, let the merciful one not write it with regard to a sin offering brought for eating forbidden fat, and one can derive it from these other sin offerings, meaning those of a Nazirite and a leper, this can be refuted. What is notable about these other sin offerings? They are notable in that there is other blood brought with them. Therefore, the halacha should apply only to similar sin offerings. If you say, let the merciful one not write it with regard to a Nazirite sin offering, and one can derive it from these other sin offerings, those of a leper and a sinner, these can be also refuted. What is notable about these other sin offerings? They are notable in that one does not have the option of obtaining an exemption through a request to a halachic authority. Nazirite, by contrast, can request a halachic authority to dissolve his vow of Naziriteship, thereby nullifying his obligation. Okay. If you say, let the merciful one not write it with regard to a leper sin offering, and one can derive it from these other sin offerings, those of a Nazirite and a sinner, these can also be refuted. What is notable about these other sin offerings? They are notable in that they cannot be brought from doves instead of sheep. If the owner is poor, unlike leper sin offering, see Leviticus 14:21. Therefore, if the halachot therefore the halachot of these different sin offerings cannot be derived from one another. Okay? Ela amar kra zot torat haolah v'lemincha v'gomer hiki shokas v'shlamim ma shlamim ben shinoi kodesh ben shinoi ba'alim ben lishman lemitzvah avchatat ben shinoi kodesh ben shinoi ba'alim beinan lishman lemitzvah. Rather, the halacha is derived from that which the verse states. This is the law of the burnt offering, and of the meal offering, and of the sin offering, and of the guilt offering, and of the consecration offering, and of the sacrifice of peace offerings. Leviticus 7:37. The verse juxtaposes a sin offering with a peace offering, indicating that just as for a peace offering we require intent for its sake, as in mitzvah ab initio, both concerning the deviation from the type of offering and concerning deviation with regard to the owner. So too, for a sin offering, we require intent for its sake, as in mitzvah, both concerning deviation from the type of offering and concerning deviation with regard to the owner. Hilkach, therefore, mitzvah mishlamim mehanakarai le'akev. Therefore, the mitzvah ab initio is derived from the halacha of a peace offering, and those verses mentioned earlier from which this requirement is derived with regard to each type of sin offering separately repeat the halacha to teach that it is indispensable. The Gemara asks, and we found a source for these halachot with regard to a sin offering brought for eating forbidden fat, as it is written with regard to it, and slaughter it for a sin offering. Leviticus 4:33, indicating that it must be slaughtered for the sake of sin offering. Likewise, sources for this halacha with regard to the sin offerings of a Nazarite and a leper have also been cited. And now we turn to 8b to continue. It's Hashem after the break. Okay, Zevachim 8b, top of the page. Chadash tavoid zare. Tishmi asakoy lepitos v'sayim v'tumas mikdash v'kedoshav. Deloketi behu menalan. From where do we derive these halachot with regard to a sin offering brought for idol worship, which has unique halachot as detailed in Numbers 15:27 through 31, and with regard to which the term for a sin offering is not written? Likewise, from where do we derive them with regard to the sin offerings that are brought for the hearing of the voice and for the utterance of lips and the defiling of the temple or its sacrificial foods, which also have unique halachot, Leviticus 5:1 through 13, with regard which the term for a sin offering is not written either. Chatas tevoid zare asim chatas chelev sheken kodesh kamois v'hanakuloi asyan b'matzad. The Gemara answers, with regard to a sin offering brought for idol worship, these halachot are derived from the halachot of a sin offering brought for eating forbidden fat, as idol worship is also punishable by karet, similar to consumption of forbidden fat. And with regard to all these other sin offerings, which are brought for transgressions, are not punishable by karet, these halachot are derived by analogy from the common element of the aforementioned three sources, namely a standard sin offering, the sin offering of a Nazarite, and the sin offering of a leper. Tanu Rabbanan, Pesach bizmano, Yishmo kasher, Shilo Yishmo pasul, Uishar Yimos Hashana, Yishmo pasul, Shilo Yishmo kasher. The sages taught when a Paschal offering is sacrificed at its appointed time on Passover Eve afternoon, if it is sacrificed for its sake, it is fit. If it is sacrificed not for its sake, it is unfit, as stated in the Mishnah. And when an offering consecrated as a Paschal offering is sacrificed during the rest of the days of the year, if it is sacrificed for its sake, it is unfit. If it is sacrificed not for its sake, it is fit. And there's the Gemara presents a mnemonic. It's Shalav Kaba'itzan Mimaher Betza Ba, and that's the simon. It's Shin Lamed Vav Kuf Beis Aleph Yud Tzadik Nun Mem Mem Hey Reish Beis Tzadik Aleph Beis Aleph. This is a mnemonic for the names of the Amoraim mentioned in this discussion. So Shin would be like Shmuel, and then Elah, Yochanan. Let's see here. Let's see who else. Yeah, basically it's giving a synonym. Okay, the Gemara. Okay, Menachem really. Amash avoid the Shmuel the Mekrayim Minatzon Mekorban Zevachim Hashem אם מן הצאן קורבנו לזבח שלמים להשם דבר הבא, מן הצאן יהיה לזבח שלמים. The Gemara asks from where these matters derive, meaning that if a Paschal offering is sacrificed during the rest of the year, it is fit if sacrificed not for its sake. Shmuel's father says, the verse states, and if his offering for sacrifice of peace offerings unto the Lord is of the flock, Leviticus 3:6, indicating that an offering is brought only from the flock will be a sacrifice of peace offerings. The Paschal offering fulfills this criterion. Ema shlamim bidechnila amrav ila amrav yochanan zevach rebos kol zevach. The Gemara challenges say, if it is sacrificed for the sake of a peace offering, yes, it is fit. But if it is sacrificed for the sake of some other offering, it is not fit. Rabbi Ela says, Rabbi Yochanan says, the redundant expression for sacrifice in Leviticus 3:6 is stated to include any type of sacrifice. Ema la kol d'shachid lehavikamosa. The Gemara asked, if so, say that a Paschal offering should be rendered as any offering for which one slaughters it. For example, if it is slaughtered for the sake of a burnt offering, it should be rendered a burnt offering. The Gemara answers, if the phrase for peace offerings that a sacrifice was written in the verse, it would be as you say. Now that it is written for a sacrifice of peace offerings, it indicates that for whatever type of offering one slaughters it, it will be a peace offering. Ema lezevach klal shlamim prat klal uprat ein b'klal el ma shebeprat shlamim in midiachin la. The Gemara challenges say that for a sacrifice is a generalization, and of peace offerings is a detail. And according to the principles of biblical hermeneutics, wherever there is a generalization and a detail, the generalization includes only that which is specified in the detail. Accordingly, if the offering is sacrificed for the sake of a peace offering, yes, it is fit, but if it is sacrificed for the sake of another offering, it is not fit. La hadar kla. The Gemara answers with the term unto the Lord, La Hashem, it's not La, it's La Hashem, hadar kla. Unto the Lord, the verse then generalized again. Therefore, the verse is formulated as a generalization, a detail and a generalization, as the Gemara will explain. Mas kivar Yaakov min harabakod, ala demekla basra lechlala, kama klala kama Rabbi Zevachim, betulo klala basra Hashem kol dila. No, Hashem kol dila Hashem afilu leofot afilu leminachot. Yaakov of Nahar Code objects to the suggestion, but the latter generalization is similar to the former generalization. The former generalization for a sacrifice includes only sacrificed offerings and nothing more, whereas the latter generalization unto the Lord includes any offering unto the Lord, and accordingly even the Paschal offering was sacrificed for the sake of burnt offerings, even for the sake of meal offerings, it should be fit, as these are brought in unto the Lord. Hatani Rabbi Ishmael. Hatani Rabbi Ishmael Miklal Prati Deresh Bechlali Uprati Daresh Ki Hai Gavne. The Gemara responds to this objection. The school Rabbi Ishmael taught generalizations and details, even in examples like this case. Klal Uprat Uklal I Ata Dan Ela Ke'ein Haprat. Ma Haprat Miforash. The Gemara explains, since unto the Lord is a second generalization, the verse is formulated as a generalization and a detail and a generalization, and you may deduce that the verse is referring only to items similar to the detail, just as the items mentioned in the detail are clearly defined as a case where a Paschal offering was sacrificed not for its own sake, and nevertheless it is fit. So too, in any case where it was sacrificed not for its sake, but for the sake of another offering, it is fit. מה הפרט מפורש? דבר הבא מנדר ובנדבה. אף כל הבא מנדר ובנדבה עולה ושלמים אין חטאת ואשם לא. The Gemara asks, if the verse is referring only to actions similar to the detail, then just as the items mentioned in the detail are clearly defined as a peace offering, which is a matter that is brought as a vow offering or as a gift offering, so too a paschal offering should be fit only if it was sacrificed for the sake of any offering that is brought as a vow offering or as a gift offering. Accordingly, if it was sacrificed for the sake of a burnt offering or a peace offering, yes, it is fit, as these are brought as a vow offering or as a gift offering. But if it was sacrificed for the sake of a sin offering or a guilt offering, it is not fit. And these are not brought as a vow offering or as a gift offering. El Zevach The Gemara therefore rejects the exegetical method of generalizations and details in favor of that of amplifications and restrictions. Rather, the term for a sacrifice is not a generalization, but an amplification, which includes any type of offering. Therefore, if a paschal offering is sacrificed for the sake of any type of offering during the rest of the year, it is fit. The Gemara challenges, if so, say that it adds a paschal offering should be rendered as any offering for which one slaughters it. Why does Shmuel's father interpret that it is rendered a peace offering specifically? Rabbi Avin says